You're listening to the Epic Universe Podcast. For more information on the Epic series of novels, visit www.epicuniverse.com.
Loading personality. Lee Stephen. Initiating podcast.
Hello, everybody, and you are listening to something that is not quite the Epic Universe Podcast, but we're definitely talking with someone who has had a huge impact on Epic and what it is and what it's going to be. And basically, everyone who has ever held one of the Epic books in their hand, you have held, something created by the person we're speaking with today, which is my designer, Fiona Raven, out of Vancouver, Canada. I work with a lot of people out of Vancouver. A lot of Canadians have been a part of Epic, which is this day and age of technology. It's amazing. How you doing, Fiona?
Hi, Lee. It's nice to be talking with you today.
I want to take a moment to kind of let people in on the design aspect of book production, because I think that's something where a lot of people don't know how much work actually goes into a physical book that you hold in your hand. I know I didn't until I contacted you for Dawn of Destiny and saw how much you did with every single page, and it was like, wow, how do people go through this process without a designer? Let me ask you the basic question.
Okay.
What exactly is book design?
Well, basically, book design is putting together a package, a cohesive package for a body of work. So you, Lee, as an author, you would have had your Word document and you might have had a couple of images to go into your book. So my job as a book designer is to put all that together into one package that is going to be really great for your readers. So they're going to be able to understand what the book is about just by looking at the cover. And once they get into reading the book, they're into the pages, it's really easy for them to read the book. You know, if your book was a nonfiction book, they'd be able to look at your table of contents and, see what's in the book or look at the index. And as they're reading the book through the different chapters, the story or the narrative just flows easily. So basically, you want to have a book that, like you say, is easy for the reader to get through.
What got you interested in this? What was it that sparked you to pursue book design as an occupation?
Well, actually, it was my mom. She decided to self-publish a book, and she asked me to design it. And, of course, I had never designed a book before. And she put together a team of people. She had an editor, an indexer, an illustrator, and me, her book designer.
Wow.
And none of us had ever designed a book before or worked on a book before. So it was a little bit crazy. We had a lot of enthusiasm, and we basically did everything backwards. But in the end, we got the book out, and it was really fabulous. It was at that point that I thought, this is what I want to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
That actually leads straight into my next question, which was going to be, what is it like starting out, and do you remember the very first book you designed? I'm guessing that's your mom's.
Yeah, totally.
What was it?
Her book was about healing using the vibration of color and sound. So a little bit off the wall, but
hey,
yeah. And so for that reason, the book was a full color book. So right away, that was a huge challenge. I started designing the book before she'd finished writing it, of course, because I didn't realize that it was smarter to design the book after it's written and edited. So there was a lot of changes, and it was a really long, it was a long process. It took over a year. But the things that I enjoyed about that, one was working as a team, because I do get to collaborate, like on your book, I collaborated with you as the author, collaborated with the editor, collaborated with your illustrator. So you do get involved in, all different aspects of the book. And so I really enjoyed that.
Well, it's a little bit different, obviously, with writing, but I can completely relate to starting out for the first time and not knowing what you're doing. I think it took me 6 years to write Dawn of Destiny, and I rewrote it about a dozen times because I would learn something new, and then you have to apply it to the whole thing.
Right.
I imagine that's how it was for you during that process.
It was. It absolutely was. And also, as we went along, it became apparent different things that needed to be done, not just for the book design, but as a self-publisher as well. So, it was a really big learning curve. But the one thing that happened with that book was that, I sent it to the printer. Thankfully, it was a local printer, and they sent it right back and said, all your images are in RGB. Well, Lee, I had no clue what RGB even was. And, for people who might be listening, RGB is a color that you see on your monitor. It's not the color that you would use to print a book. So, the learning curve didn't even end when the book went to press. I had to, buy Photoshop and carry on from there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to ask you right now to clarify the different, like, RGB and what all that means and what the other ones are, because I know I still, and we've done 4 books together, and I still have, when you say it needs to be in CMKY, or is that, did I get that right?
Almost. It's CMYK.
CMYK.
Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And those are the 4 colors that they use on a printing press. Those are the only colors they have for inks on a full color printing press. So basically all your colors have to be able to come out of those 4 colors. So it's just a quick conversion process. It's nothing that as an author you have to worry about, but as a book designer, definitely it's part of the production work for your book, making sure that the colors are going to print properly. So, again, that's something that as your book designer needs to know that.
I've even gone through that working with you when you see an image that you might get from an artist, and it looks totally different when you have the mock-up in your hand. Not totally different, but the shades are a little bit different. Some things are darker.
Yeah, it is different.
Yeah.
And because every monitor on the planet will display color differently. And I have 2 monitors in front of me, and they both display colors differently. So, I have no idea what you're looking at or what anyone else is looking at. But as long as the colors are going to come out well on the press, that's the main thing.
This is the question that I have to ask, because people who are interested in this are going to want to know what programs, what software are you using. So what's your arsenal on your computer?
Okay, I use Adobe Creative Suite. It used to be all, separate software, but now it comes as a bundle. So I have the print bundle for that. So I have InDesign, which is a page layout program. I can lay out the pages 2 up on the screen and go through all the pages, and I can also build the cover in InDesign. Basically, InDesign lets you combine text and images in a good way. And then I have Photoshop. That's part of Creative Suite as well. And I use Photoshop for manipulating images. So, for example, you give me an image for your book cover. It needs to be changed to CMYK color because most images coming from digital cameras are in RGB, which is red, green, blue for the monitor. And I probably need to size your image so that it fits properly on the book cover. And I may need to do a little color correction. Some illustrations might have some colors in them, especially if they're in RGB, that are not going to print with the ink colors because the ink colors are much more limited than the monitor colors. So I just have to make sure that all the colors are going to, print properly, and that's what I use Photoshop for. Right. Then it also comes with Acrobat, which probably everyone's familiar with PDF files.
But we know Adobe Acrobat because it wants to update every every 4 hours and restart your computer.
That's right. So, and that's handy though because when I'm sending out sample designs, for example, I would send them out as a PDF file. And also when your book ultimately gets uploaded to the printer, I actually send them PDF files.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically that's it. I mean, there's lots of other software that goes with it. You know, I have FTP software for transferring files and that sort of thing. But basically for the design work, Adobe Creative Suite is pretty much where it's at these days.
I have to ask you about the starting steps for someone who is totally unfamiliar with this process, but knows I need a designer for this book that I just wrote. Brand new client comes up to you and just says, hey, I'm looking for you to design my book. Here it is. Where do you go from there? What is step one in the book design process?
Okay. Well, usually I hear from somebody either by email or by phone. So, you know, we discuss the book a little bit, find out what materials they have, word count, that sort of thing. And then there's a little paperwork at the beginning. So I would quote on it, they would sign the quotes, we'd have a simple contract and a deposit to get started. So once we're started, I do up 3 rough designs as a starting point. Then we would work together, discuss the designs, see what the author likes or doesn't like about them, and we would work together towards a final design. For example, you know, your first book cover, Dawn of Destiny, you had a pretty good idea which scene you wanted on the front cover. And so I drafted some rough designs, you know, using figures and this and that to get your composition. And then once we had found a nice composition and the way that the type was going to appear on the cover, then your illustrator stepped in and created the final illustration for the cover. So, you know, that's sort of an example of working together towards a final design. And then, of course, when the design is finished, I would continue on to create the rest of the cover, the spine and the back cover. And the same goes for the page design. I do up 3 designs for the author to look at. And you know, we can mix and match from designs. They might say, oh, I like the typeface best from design 1, but, you know, I prefer the overall layout from design 2, and that sort of thing. So we work towards getting the design that the author wants, and then I would typeset the book and add the front and back matter. When that's all done, I create a mock-up of the book, just print it out at a local copy store here, trimmed to size, and send that to the author. That's often the author's first look at what their book is really going to look like. I mean, Lee, you've received your mock-up in the mail,
yeah.
And it's never the same as looking at the sheets of paper that you've printed, you know, off the PDF file,
Oh, yeah.
that sort of thing. And so that is sort of the authors, give them a real good idea of exactly what their book is going to look like when it's published. And then it's just finishing up, signing a proof approval, and uploading the files to the printer.
Yeah, I love receiving those mock-ups in.
Yeah.
Because 1, they look awesome, and 2, it means I can take a break. Because I usually work for years on these things. So
then your work is done.
Yeah, my work is done. I'm going to the beach. Do you rather start, if all options are on the table, do you rather start with the exterior, the cover, or the interior pages? It
really makes no difference to me. Often an author or a small publisher particularly might want to work on their front cover first. I work with a couple of small publishers, and generally we do their book covers in January, February, so that they can get them into their catalogs. And then we don't start the pages till August. so that the book is finished by the end of the year. But usually, with the self-publishing authors, it really depends on what they prefer. If you've written a really lengthy book, 400 or 500 pages, you might prefer to do the pages first, and that way the proofreader will have a few weeks to go through the book, and then we can use that time to work on the cover. But either way is fine with me. I do find if I do the pages first that I get a little bit better idea of what the book's about, and it might give me some ideas for the cover. But generally, it really makes no difference.
So the interior pages can give you an idea of what the exterior could?
What the cover could look like?
Right.
Sometimes. I mean, if, say, I'm going through a book and it's a novel, and I'm not really reading it, but I'm typesetting the pages, and I notice a lot of it takes place in a village in the mountains, I might think, maybe we'll have some mountains on the cover. Just things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that a little later on, but since you just touched on it, perfect little segue. Do you ever get to actually really read the book as you're designing the interior, or is it's all business right now? Let's just get the interior done. I'm not worried about the story. Or do you can't help but sometimes I want to know what's going on in this book?
Well, it's a little bit of both. I mean, it's not really cost effective for me or for the author to have me read the whole book, and some books are quite lengthy. But
yeah, I know.
Yeah, Lee. Some books are quite lengthy.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
Yeah. No, I don't normally read the book because, usually I don't have the time to read the book. That would be a luxury. But having said that, there are books that I find it very difficult not to get into the plot as I'm typesetting it. I'll find myself reading bits of it and, oh boy, there just went half an hour and I wasn't actually working. I was actually just reading. So, but normally, no, I don't read the books as I go through. I do get a good idea of what it's about because I do go through, every single paragraph, look for awkward line endings or hyphens and that sort of thing. But It's mostly just skimming.
That's one thing that got me wondering about that because one of the things, and there's a ton of things that go into each page, but the breakdown of hyphens and when to start a new line and the little spacings like that, that's got to be tedious.
It is kind of tedious. Yeah. It helps if you're a little bit OCD too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. But well, it's just, standard typography, and it's just something that you do, and I find the time goes quite quickly.
What do people not realize goes into every single page for design?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're reading a book, you don't really notice any of these weird things because they've all been removed. But you certainly see them. When I first flow the type into the pages, it's quite obvious what needs to be fixed. For example, it looks really nice when every page has the same number of lines, when they all end at the same place at the bottom of the page. And it's not very often that all the pages do that by themselves. So that means going through and finding every short page and trying to manipulate a way that they'll all be the same length. Another thing that is a no-no in typesetting is to have the last line of a paragraph at the top of a page. A little short line, maybe 3 or 4 words at the top of the page. You really try and avoid that. So again, you may have to manipulate some of the text. When I say manipulate, squeezing, if a paragraph only has 1 or 2 lines at the end of the paragraph on the last line, you can squeeze it a little bit and bump those couple of words up a line, and that way you can gain and lose space. So just things like that. And you wouldn't want a hyphen at the very end of a page on the right-hand side so that the reader would actually have to turn the page to see the rest of the word, because that's a bit awkward.
I remember the first time that I worked with you, and you were asking me some of these questions and kind of explaining all of these process, and I realized, wow, there's a lot of, it's hard to fit every single word. When you've got, justified borders, it is very hard for everything just to work out. You've really got to look at how each line ends,
Mm-hmm.
That just struck me as something that, we hit justify and Microsoft Word just takes off with it. It's not like that in design.
No, and I think, boy, if I could just take out this one little sentence, it would sure look a lot better on the page. But I never do that.
Do most people who come to you have a pretty good idea already of what they want to do, or is it often a case of I just wrote this book and I don't know what to do with it now. You tell me, what's the next step?
Yeah. I find, because I work mostly with self-publishing authors, and a lot of them are first-time authors, no, most of them don't really know what they want. I mean, they have a vague idea. You don't really look at the pages of the book and pay attention until you've written your own book. And so as far as the pages go, most authors never have any idea. They don't even know what the design is going to be. What do you have to design on a page exactly? And some authors have a better idea of what they want for the cover, but most don't. Most are relying on my expertise to guide them through the process. They might have an image that they think would be good for the cover, or they might have a bunch of images inside the book and say, you can pick from those if you want, and that sort of thing. But generally, they're pretty much relying on me. And, I ask them if I can have a synopsis of the book and any ideas that they might have to use as a starting point. And also, what's really important is who their target market is.
Right.
Yeah. So that I'm designing to their target market.
What do you do when someone comes up to you and they say, like, I've got this idea, I'm sold on it, and here's what I want on the cover, and you just know, like, this is bad. This is a terrible idea.
Uh-huh.
Is there ever a point where you have to say that, like, or try and tactfully word it, like, well, let's look at some other options?
Well, most of the time when that happens, it's because of an image. To be honest, now that we all have our cameras and our phones will take pictures, more and more people are coming to me with pictures that they want to use on their book cover, which are really bad quality.
Yeah.
And so in that situation, I would definitely do a cover design that uses that picture and make it as good as I possibly can. I would also try some cover designs with a similar picture. If somebody has a picture of, say, their daughter's sitting in a park on a sunny day, I would try and find a similar image, a professionally shot image that's high resolution, and suggest we could use that image instead. If your book's sold on Amazon, nobody's going to meet you. Your readers aren't going to meet you and know that it's not your daughter. So try and come up with some good options, and but still give them what they want. Because usually it's the feeling that they get. That's what's selling them on the cover. It doesn't always have to be exactly that. And some ideas that authors have are not necessarily bad ideas per se. It's just sort of a lack of knowledge about the printing process. For example, they might say, well, I want this on the cover, and I want the letters embossed, and I want gold foil and all this stuff. And I say, well, that's fine. I mean, I can totally do that for you, but, you should know before we go ahead with that it will be a lot more expensive to print. And you won't have the option of doing print on demand because it doesn't support that kind of, so some bad ideas are not necessarily bad ideas. They're just not informed yet because it's their first book.
You talked about the feeling that an image might make someone, might conjure up in them, and so they want to use that. But they have to realize, like, that's only them. No one else has that feeling. No one else has that personal attachment to what they have there.
That's right. Yeah, and so if if I can come up with something that's just as good, for the feeling. If the feeling they get is just as good, then they're more likely to let go of the image, which maybe the resolution isn't high enough or the quality isn't there. Yeah.
You mentioned print on demand, and that as an indie writer, I can attest to how that has opened the door for anyone to professionally publish anything they want. One of the things that's really catching on now and has kind of revolutionized reading in the world are ebooks. How has that affected you? How has that changed you from a design standpoint?
Yeah, ebooks, they definitely have. They haven't changed anything from a design standpoint. I'll explain that in a minute. But they definitely have changed my business. I've included ebooks as an add-on service because now 90% of my authors request an ebook. They still want the print book, which was always the basis of my business, so that hasn't changed, but now they want the ebook too. But everybody's different, The comment I wanted to make about designing ebooks is that actually to create an ebook, I have to remove all the design from the book, completely remove it. Yeah, so it's sort of I convert to ebook from InDesign, so create the print book design in InDesign, and then absolutely all the formatting has to be stripped out, because as you know, on every e-reader, every device is different, and they have their own fonts. In fact, the reader can pick what size font they want and what font they want and all that sort of thing. So there's not too much design with ebooks. It's mostly, from my end, it's mostly production.
I'm partial to physical books. That's just me.
I'm glad to hear that, Lee.
I am.
Yeah.
Ebooks are doing very well for me. But I don't think I would ever publish a book on my own that was just ebook. I want to get that mock-up in the mail and hold it and say, wow, I'm holding something that I wrote, as opposed to, I'm looking at something on the screen that I wrote. To me, there's just a difference there for me. Maybe it's not the same for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, and especially with print on demand these days, because it's not like you have 1,000 books in your garage.
Yeah. Right.
So that's a lot more convenient as well.
Pre-print on demand. I've never dealt with that. It's always been there for me. For those curious, my printer is Lightning Source. They're based out of Nashville, Tennessee. But I could not even imagine having boxes in my garage or in a room, and every person who wants to buy a book, you have to, package it and put it in the mail and send it off. Like, I can't even imagine doing that.
That's too crazy.
That's too crazy. And so many people, that was the independent route before print-on-demand technology.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what my mom did with all her books. And, shipping them all out one at a time, a case at a time, whatever. It's a lot of work.
Let me ask you this question. This is it's semi on topic, off topic, but I'm always curious as to what environment is around you when you're working. I know for me, I think most people have this image in their head of the writer is in the woods in a cabin. I'm sitting in my office right now. I've got stacks of papers here, and I probably need to straighten out some things out and about. What kind of environment do you like to work in? Are you set up to where you can take your work on the go, like with laptops, or do you have a dedicated desktop that you work from?
I am sitting here surrounded by technology and books. I can work from my laptop, but I would generally not prefer to. In my workspace here, I have 2 monitors. One monitor has all my tool palettes on it for working in InDesign and Photoshop. The other monitor is large enough that I can see a book, a 2-page spread, 2 up on the monitor.
Right.
I have a big printer, I have a scanner, I have a paper cutter, all the things that I need to put together designs. Excuse me. And I have a lot of books around me for inspiration. And
like what kind of books are inspirational for you?
I go to book design awards ceremonies and buy as many books as I can of the award winners because they're beautifully designed, and those are a big inspiration for me. I also have 2 shelves of books that are about book design, typography, how to design books, all that sort of thing. And then, of course, I have a whole shelf of all the books, the Chicago Manual of Style, the American Dictionary, the Canadian Dictionary, copyright issues, self-publishing books, and
Is the Canadian Dictionary really that different from the American Dictionary?
Yeah, it totally is.
Totally.
We have a whole other language up here,
Yeah.
Well,
I need to get me a Canadian dictionary for my Canadian characters.
We add U's into almost every word you can think of. Color, favor, humor. Yeah, but I like to be in an environment with all this set up around me. I just find it much easier than on a laptop, where if you have the menus or palettes open, your space that you can actually see gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Are you a real early riser to get to work? Grab you a cup of coffee at 5 a.m. and sit down and start going?
No, I get up early, but that's so that I can do some yoga and practice the piano before I get here at 9.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the only time of day I seem to have to do those things. So that's the only reason I'm an early riser, not to get to work.
I had no idea, Fiona, that you played the piano. Learning something new.
I'm learning something new.
So no coffee for you when you're hopping out of bed. Just straight on to yoga and
coffee at my studio.
Coffee at your studio.
Yeah, it makes it smell nice too.
Oh yeah, that's the only thing my wife likes about coffee. She can't stand to drink it, but it smells nice in here. It smells like a coffee shop.
Yeah.
What do you have going on right now, Fiona? What are some of the things that you're working on currently? What are some of the things that you've? What are some of the exceptional long books that you've recently designed that everyone listening should go out and buy? And
well, really, there's only one. It's called The Glorious Becoming, but I can highly recommend it. It's actually book 4 of a wonderful series.
Wonderful series.
That once you get started reading it, you will never be able to put that series down.
Your life will be different.
It will. It'll be completely changed.
What are some of the other projects that you've had out there recently that people can go and check out?
Well, I haven't updated my website completely yet, but over the last 6 months or so, I've worked on a children's book for older children, which was a lot of fun to work on, called Harriet's Trunk. And I've worked on a history book about a rogue soldier of the Texas Revolution. And that one was quite interesting to design the cover. I had a lot of very cool images at my disposal for that one. Designed a book that is going to be made into a movie called Starlight.
Wow.
Yeah. That was for an author in Ireland. So a lot of my work comes from around the world because of my website.
Right.
And I really love that. And the other thing I love is having the variety of genres of book. So I can design children's books, nonfiction books, coffee table books, fiction, of course. There's just an endless variety, and you never know who you're going to meet.
It must be so different to work on a children's book as opposed to something where you've got just inside is just text. You've just got the narrative. But I would assume a children's book, you're going to have pictures on every page, and that's just a totally different animal, huh?
Yep, pictures on every page, and, working quite closely with an illustrator usually for those kind of books, because the illustrator, is setting out the 2-page spreads, and we're deciding where the text is going to go and even what they're going to draw for the image. Children's books are fabulous. They really are interesting. Lots of color work.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Dealing with one image when I'm talking to my cover artist, so like plugged into like how I want everything to look, and this has to be like this, and I really want this to be this way, more this way. And if I had to do that for like 30 pages worth of children's book, I would die. I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility for the illustrator, and it's difficult for them sometimes to stay focused over the length of time that it takes.
Mm-hmm.
It could take a year or more to illustrate a whole children's book.
Right.
And things with watercolor, or if they're not illustrating on the computer. On the computer, we're so used to being able to undo, delete, duplicate, and shift all the colors. And if an illustrator is working in watercolor or oils or acrylic or drawing, even drawing with a pencil drawing, it's a lot more difficult for them to make changes. We're so used to changing everything all the time.
Yeah, one click of a button and you've undid whatever mistake you just made. That's a big
gone with the wind. Yeah.
I was thinking today. I was working on something. And I was like, if I screw this up, can I hit undo? And I was like, no, I'm in the real world.
Yeah.
Fiona, thank you so much for getting a chance to come here and talk to me about some of this. I've been wanting to do some of these for a while. I want people to know that when you're holding a book in your hand, there's not just the writer who did it. He had the easy part. All the actual physical hard work is being done by so many other people, and you're at the forefront of that for Epic. So I'm so happy to be working with you. I'm so happy to have gotten a chance to interview you today, and thank you so much for doing a job that many of us are completely incapable of doing.
Well, Lee, I really enjoyed working with you and working on your books as well. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to chat with you today. I hope that your listeners will have a better idea of, what's involved in book design. And it's certainly, if they have any questions, they can give me a call or look me up on the internet.
But before we go, you got to give me one good hoodat.
Hoodat.
Fiona's a converted Saints fan. I'm bringing
black and gold.
I had to teach her some Bayou cheers and whatnot. So she's definitely a black and gold.
You taught me the basics, Lee.
Yeah, a converted member of the Houdat Nation. Just don't read any news about the Saints right now.
Okay.
It's not good.
I'll consider myself forewarned.
Yeah, it'll get better, we hope.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to me today, Fiona.
Thank you, Lee. Take care.
You too.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to the Epic Universe podcast. To catch the latest word on Epic, join the community at www.epicuniverse.com.